We have some breaking news to tell you on this Wednesday regarding the PGA Tour. According to the Wall Street Journal, Phil Mickelson, Bryson DeChambeau, and 9 other LIV Golf players have filed an antitrust lawsuit against the PGA Tour. The suit challenges the suspensions the PGA Tour has already implemented, not allowing the LIV golfers to play in PGA Tour events, as well as the FedEx Cup playoffs. For more, we are now joined by Rex Hoggard. Rex, what do we know right now?
This lawsuit was filed just this morning in U.S. District Court in Northern California. We know that, as you pointed out, it's 11 players. I guess the most interesting thing that jumps off the page is that not all 11 players are even qualified to play in the playoffs. You mentioned 2 of the players that you mentioned, Phil Mickelson and Bryson DeChambeau, are currently outside the top 125. Now, this lawsuit is more than 100 pages long, so I'm still trying to file through it and digest it completely, but it seems as if LIV Golf and these players are claiming that because they had been suspended during the regular season, that they never even got the opportunity to compete in these playoffs. Now, what they're going after here, it's a long-term lawsuit, but in the immediacy of right now, they're trying to get a temporary restraining order that would allow them to play in the playoffs starting next week.
Rex, we saw the same thing play out at the Genesis Scottish Open when Ian Poulter and 3 other players made their way into the field. They're based on seeking an injunction. That was held in private arbitration rather than in a public courtroom. Only 3 of these 11 players are seeking to force their way into the playoffs that they've been told by the PGA Tour that they will not be eligible to compete in. What do you think the reaction is likely to be among players when they hear this news and they see LIV guys attempting to legally force their way into the field?
I think the reaction is already out there, Eamon, to be honest with you. If you listened to Davis Love's press conference yesterday from the Wyndham Championship, this was very personal. It was very emotional for him, and he put it on the line. He actually referenced something that he called a nuclear option as far as if these players are allowed to compete in the playoffs. I think he put it, have their cake and eat it too, be able to play both tours, that should actually spark something among the players who did remain loyal to the PGA Tour and get them to push back and maybe get them to maybe boycott events. And we never want it to get to that, but you get an idea of how emotional that is. I actually spoke with Ryan Palmer this morning about this eventuality, if they are allowed to compete in the playoffs. And there's a level of anger there, that this goes beyond sort of the normal niceties that we've seen on this particular subject up until now, really. This gets to the heart of they're impacting someone else's ability to make a living, and I think you're going to see this get more and more personal.
Rex, you mentioned the players. How about the tour itself, and how important is it that it protects the players who have been loyal to the PGA Tour, that their place in the FedEx Cup, in the playoffs, is not jeopardized by the potential of additional players, LIV Golf players, being in the playoffs?
Well, go back to last week, Damon, and the PGA Tour actually announced to their players in a memo from Commissioner Jay Monahan that they were coming up with 2 separate lists. It's the normal FedEx Cup points list that we're kind of focused on right now going into this last regular season event, and then there's something called the eligibility points list. And essentially what this did is removed those players who had been indefinitely suspended for playing the LIV Golf events. And you almost get the idea, and I've spoken with some folks at the tour, that they were preparing for this eventuality. If these players are allowed to compete in the playoffs, you have to find a way to separate them out, and yet you still have to be able to award them points. You still have to allow them to compete. So they're preparing for this. I'm sure it's something that they would much rather not have to deal with starting next week in Memphis at the first playoff event.
Rex, almost to a man among those who've left for LIV Golf, we've heard them say that part of the decision is playing less golf, spending more time at home with their families. And now we have them litigating over the right to play, essentially, more golf and spend more time away from their families. What do these players potentially gain from continuing to have access to the PGA Tour, even if they're not particularly welcome?
I think then the quickest answer to that would be world ranking points, which of course has become a hot topic because they just requested to be considered for world ranking points at the Open Championship. I'm talking about LIV Golf, and that's going to be a process that's, from what I've been told, at least going to be a year, if not longer, before that's even processed through, and if they may or may not be allowed to get points. So in the short term, they would need to compete for world ranking points, which would keep them inside the top 50, inside those magic numbers, to be able to ultimately play in the major championships, which is where this is going to end up. I think you're right when you hear players talking about the LIV players saying that they want to play less, and yet you have players, I think Patrick Reed announced just this week that he's going to go compete in 2 Asian Tour events in the interim between the LIV Golf events that have already been played and those that will be played later this fall. So there is a disconnect there, and it goes all the way to what they're trying to accomplish. They're trying to maintain their relevancy as far from a competitive standpoint. They need to be relevant inside that top 50 to be able to maintain that relevance as a top 50 in a major championship player.
Rex, what about the news that Phil Mickelson was, in fact, suspended? What should we know?
It is interesting because this goes back to the cat and mouse game that he had been talking about for quite some time. He had sort of alluded to it, and the PGA Tour had denied it. Now, the PGA Tour has, as a matter of course and as a matter of policy, never announced suspensions until recently with the LIV Golf players, so that would be something new. But that is an interesting element of this lawsuit, knowing that he had been suspended. And this goes to some conversations that I had with players and officials really late last year, that the reason this was coming to a head so much, it wasn't so much that LIV Golf was on the horizon and was the threat that we now know it to be. It was that I was told that there was top players out on PGA Tour ranges recruiting other players, and that was something the Tour simply couldn't allow to happen at their own events. And now in this particular case, it seems as if Phil Mickelson was probably one of those players.
Rex Hoggard reporting on this antitrust lawsuit against the PGA Tour. Eamon Lynch, we've been covering this story now for several months. Your reaction to this development?
It's interesting that they waited so long to file this lawsuit, having been suspended quite some time ago, because I think there's a desire to create a sense of emergency, that they need immediate injunctive relief in the courts that they could have applied for some weeks ago. And I talked this morning to Professor Jody Balsam, who's Professor of Sports Law at Brooklyn Law School, and there's a distinction between 2 legal cases here. There's the broader antitrust case that will be fought out perhaps over years, which is what most of these golfers have filed onto. Only 3 of the golfers here, Matt Jones, Hudson Swafford and Taylor Gooch, have signed on seeking injunctive relief to play in the FedEx Cup playoffs next week. And there are 2 key prongs to getting injunctive relief. One is a substantial likelihood that you could win your antitrust case on the merits. That's a low bar to reach. The mere fact that you have merits to a case to be argued down the road, the courts have tended to be sympathetic to individual athletes who are litigating eligibility rules. So that's one criteria on which they might actually succeed in getting that injunction. The other one's a little more complicated. These players would have to prove irreparable harm being done to them that cannot be repaired by money damages. Now, the Tour has made clear, even by drawing up this alternate list of eligible players, that it intends to pay out what these players earned in the FedEx Cups, just not letting them compete in the playoffs because they're under suspension. And that becomes a much more complicated case to argue for these guys, because what is the damage being done to them other than the absence of money? Is it the glory that they think they would cover themselves in by playing in these events? So it's a lot of injunctive relief cases basically come down to the luck of the draw in terms of the judge that you get and how they're minded to vote on these things. But generally speaking, the bar threshold to which players have to reach to get an injunction is a lot lower than the threshold that would be required to win any broader antitrust case down the road.
These are extremely complex situations. Every antitrust lawsuit is not the same as one that preceded. I was struck by what Rex said about the potential now for anger. It seems like the niceties that we've heard over the last several months, well, I'm still friends with so-and-so. Do you think that could change now as we now have lawsuits against the PGA Tour?
You're already seeing that change. Now, when you have Davis Love, who is the ultimate kind of middle-of-the-road, non-radical guy on the PGA Tour, calling for potential boycotts, which these players would then turn around and allege that the PGA Tour has put Davis Love up to that, and it's somehow some cabal acting against them, which is utter nonsense. I'm not sure how any such boycott would actually be sustainable anyway. But you're going to see a lot more resentment now, because it's the PGA Tour members who are not with LIV have seen these guys go pick up their checks. Now they're coming back saying, I've got my money, I'm now coming for yours. That's how they're going to interpret it. So the niceties are going to be gone.